This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today, I am joined by Gabriel Shahin. Gabriel is a CFP, and he's the president and founder of Falcon Wealth Planning. He also is the host of a radio show, More Knowledge, More Wealth. He's also married with 3 kids and has a very supportive wife. Gabriel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Travis. Happy to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got chatting before we went live with this episode, and I got some great insights into the beginnings of you and your company, even the meaning of Falcon Wealth. But I'll let you tell the listeners here a little bit about your path as a CFP, your path into this industry.
Yeah, I started in 2003 working at the big national banks. Really got a core foundation of just communicating with people. We'll call it Sales 101. And that migrated into management over there, kind of the financial specialist role. So always was intrigued pretty early on in the investment side. Worked at a wirehouse for a year. This was all in Arizona and the Phoenix metropolitan area. And then I moved out to Los Angeles and worked for a discount broker, TD Ameritrade to be specific. And that was probably one of the best career moves of my life. Worked there for about 5 years and got to work with really some of the top RIAs in the country, and really got to indirectly work with them, referring them business to the Advisor Direct platform. And the benefit of that was just really talking to them, kind of seeing, their specialty, their niches, so on and so forth. And then the next phase of my career, I worked for an RIA for a year, and really was ready to commit my career to them. But really, there just was a philosophical difference, cultural difference. And so when I was looking for a firm to go to, really, I couldn't find one that checked all the boxes. Like a very intense wealth management firm. They have minimums of $500,000, $1 million and up. It would be nice to not only help the rich get richer, but the aspiring become rich. And so with help of my wife and her family, who's a family of entrepreneurs, really said, this is the time. If you want to go independent, this is the time to do it. And was scared to do it, didn't really think to do it. But really it was help getting a push from them. And looking back, I was fearless to do it, but more importantly, just the support of my spouse. It was nice that I didn't have to worry about working home late or my wife saying, "Hey, you're always on the cell phone," or so they kind of understood it through her parents, and which really allowed me to just have that clear mind to work long hours, very hard, and to get where we are today.
I love that. The entrepreneur story, right? As going independent, which this is definitely a path of freedom, flexibility, unlimited potential, financially. But what would you say? Like, was it really that cultural shift? Like, I want to create my own culture. I want to be here to really direct my own path. Was that what really made you decide that you're going to start Falcon Wealth?
I would say a lot of it had to do with what type of environment do I see myself? I came from a place that I really didn't appreciate the environment and culture. So I really wanted to find a place that was priority. And I really didn't like the idea of just saying no to clients. If somebody wanted to work with you and turning business away because they didn't have enough AUM assets, that didn't really feel right to me. If somebody was motivated that they want to work with you. And so that was difficult to find a firm, and I couldn't find a firm that could offer all the services, had tax planning, estate planning, and really had everything that could help people grow their overall net worth, not just their investments. And so, yeah, really, what seemed right at the time was just starting our own shop. And at the time, I think I was in my early 30s. My wife was 5 months pregnant, still finishing her grad school, living off her stipend. And it just made sense. I don't know how, but I think the biggest thing was I saw what I had to do. I think the biggest fear was, what do I do on day one? Like, what does day one look like? You just sit there and wait for clients. And I think once I figured out what day one looks like, I think it got a lot easier after that.
Love it. So this is a perfect segue into the next, concepts that we're going to be talking about. As you're making this jump into the unknown, and your wife is pregnant, the income is this like, well, what are we going to do? Like a lot of things up in it, like a lot of unknowns. And this is what I find time and time again with successful entrepreneurs like yourself, is that you really figure out, that you can take this risk. You can take the jump because you're willing to make that happen. So I'm excited to hear, kind of as we're jumping into this topic of balance. I want to know first, as you're struggling, and dealing with all this at the very beginning, I want to know now kind of like, what is your definition of balance as you're having all these different stressors?
Yeah, I would say it's prioritizing your focus on, there's two worlds, I always say. There's my work world and there's my family, my life, my personal life world. And I think it's being able to, you have to like both of them. And so for me, I could work nonstop. There was a point in time on a Saturday, I didn't leave the office till 11 o'clock, and a 7 o'clock meeting went until, I think it was like 9:45. And after paperwork, it was 11 o'clock. And, if you don't have a passion for this, then that's going to be difficult. You have to like it. You can't want to do this for money because you might take shortcuts and you can get burnt out really quick. So obviously, if you're willing to have a family and be married, you have a passion and a love for them as well. So I think striking that, what makes you happy at that point, and communicating with your happy zone, whether it's a spouse, whether it's friends, whether it's kids, I think being able to communicate with them, just setting that expectation, I think that's huge. But if you love your job, that's great. If you love your personal side, that's obviously amazing. But you have to be able to balance that out. You can't work 24/7, even though you may. So there are times you have to put that cell phone down and say, okay, this is a church time. I don't think I'm going to check my phone from 10 to 1 o'clock. And the same with the kids. You have to be able to, okay, this is our wrestling time. This is our teaching time. But then after that, you go straight to work, not because you have so much to do on your checklist, because you're passionate about this. You want to get it done. You care about your clients. You care about be done with your checklist for work. And then that, once you do that, once you check it and you could spread that out properly through tasks or CRM, whatever it is, you enjoy the personal side that much more, because it's just, all right, I did what I had to do. And sometimes the best times I have with my family is knowing that I accomplished. You're never going to get done with everything. You can't, right? It's a business. But just those task management where, okay, I did what I had to do. Let's push the rest off. That to me is how I handle the balance side of it.
Yeah, there is such a struggle to stay present, stay focused. And like, that sounds like to me, what you've mentioned here, like this is church time, this is kids time, this is work time, and that you're present. What would you say is probably one of the biggest issues that you have personally with that, keeping that balance, having those priorities, keeping present? Like, I know that you and I talk about this, but I struggle with it, and I'm the balance guy, but we all have these issues. What do you think is one of your biggest, maybe Achilles heels when it comes to keeping that balance, staying present?
I would say it's just, you said it perfectly. And I'll give you a couple examples. When we hit 100 million, when we hit 250 million, when, 500 million, never really got to just sit down and say, yay, congratulations team, let's do something. And it's the same thing with kids. I just remember there was a point in time I was at my daughter's kindergarten graduation, and I really wasn't able, it was just busy at work. It was around tax season. I'm not sure. Maybe we had a big event coming, but I just remember me on the phone a lot, and I wasn't really able to appreciate that event as much as I should. And so obviously self-awareness of things like that is important, but it is a struggle because you're so much in go mode, and you don't think about the intermittent successes and achievements and milestones. You really don't. It's like, hey, I just want to raise great kids. This kindergarten graduation is a kindergarten graduation. And that at that point, you don't realize it until after the fact, like, you know what, I should have given that more attention.
Yeah, it's true. It's usually after the fact that we have that, right? Like, oh man, blew that, missed that opportunity. But what I like about you, your energy, your direction, is you're a man that wants to change things. Like you seem like, you care about that enough that I'm going to make a change. What changes do you think you've made since you started the practice, looking back till now, that's helped you be more balanced?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's, getting the right people on board, where I used to do everything, right? When you're a one-man shop, your operations, your planning, your financial planner, your business development, your absolutely everything, and bringing really qualified individuals, people you can trust to help delegate that out. And I remember, somebody telling me, it was a client of mine that, we grew up saying time is money. And you come to a point, no matter how much money you have, you can't buy time. And that stuck with me forever, as this person was terminally ill telling me that story. But then it really revolutionized the way I thought of as I started the practice, probably year 2 or 3, where I was thinking to myself, isn't that when you hire a new associate, isn't that what you're doing? Aren't you buying time? And so I really started to shift the certain duties out to other people and really fixating on what I love doing. So that way, if it was a grind from the outside or time consuming from the outside, it's like, but I like doing these things. And so that was probably the biggest thing, was being able to delegate that out. And that's why we probably have a larger staff than most at our place when you look at our AUM. But, it allows me to have the balance that I need to really enjoy work, which I think is very important because you can get burnout. And for me, more importantly, to enjoy my family. So it's my wife has seen the transition in the past year and a half where I'm able to, it's really the birth of our 3rd child is really when everybody has been able to see that. And the funny thing is we went on a vacation not too long ago, and I came back and somebody's like, we're so happy that you went to a vacation. Like, it was shocking to me. Like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, everybody's so happy for you that you got to leave and you didn't work, other vacations or family trips where I would still send emails, text messages, I'd still be on it, but everybody felt that I was actually on vacation. That's cool. You want to lead by example. You want to show you're a hard worker, and it's validating when the staff is happy for you to take time off.
Love that. There's a couple of people I've had on the podcast here recently. Brock Buckles. He was a podcast guest, I would say a few weeks ago now, but just to give you guys episode 26, we talked about professional balance. We talked a lot about this of delegating and getting out of doing everything so that you can have professional balance. And, I just saw a post of his today, like he's in Puerto Rico enjoying getting away, you need to do it. And what you mentioned there is the fact that you have built such a good team. Like, I can tell your company culture is excellent because they're excited for you. Like, if you said, oh, they were jealous of you or really, upset that you left them with all, like, I could tell what kind of a leader you were. And no offense to any listeners out there, if that's a struggle, that's a real struggle, but you can fix it. You can fix culture. You can train. You can hire the right people. And that's a really big, plug for this. What would you say is the most difficult thing about finding the right people to delegate to?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because it's really, for me, is you have all the right interview questions, everything that you could say, everything, what motivates them, what gets them going. But what I found is just finding good human beings is what I call them. And there is really 2 things that I fixate on that. And I use this example from one of my old mentors a decade ago. And he goes, if you were to get in an airport for 8 hours, a layover with this individual, could you engage in conversation, or would you just say, oh my gosh, kill me now? So that's number one. And number 2 is when I do interview somebody, I've just always been trained this really by my father. And that was, if you hire someone to work for you, you have to think to yourself, would you work for them? And it's always kind of been in my head, like, would I work for this individual in whatever paradigm there is? And so doing that, just finding a good human being, somebody that you can engage in if you're in a layover at Midway Airport for 8 hours, and then you could work with, I think that's a pretty good trifecta, not so much what their GPA was in college or high school or what they've done recently, because if they have good core fundamentals, I think just keeping them motivated, giving them a clear path to success, and being appreciated, I think is such an important combination.
Love that. So one of my partners who's on episode 6, I'm dropping a whole bunch of episodes today. Episode 6 has Stephanie Roberts. And the reason why I'm bringing her up is because, like, you need to find good human beings. Their company's name is Humans Being Resources. They focus on the right fit. They focus on the values. They focus on the individual. And, they do an excellent job. I literally refer advisors almost every day. If you need to hire somebody, go to those values. I love it. That's it. That's a really, excellent plug for the book. We talk about values, chapter 2, priorities, chapter 3. But we really focus on, how it is to identify your own values. So you really need to know what your values are, what you value, because you're going to find someone typically working for you that has similar values, similar culture, similar goals and direction. You're going to work really well together. But I love the question you put there at the end. Would you work for them? Honestly, Gabriel, that never crossed my mind when I've hired people. That is such a great question, though, of kind of turning the tide there on yourself and saying, gee, would I feel comfortable? But I think it's another way of basically asking, do you share the same values? So I really want to kind of focus on that. I like that. Now, listen, you've hired a lot of financial advisors. How many advisors are working for you right now again?
We have 8.
You have 8 advisors. You have a staff of how many?
30.
30. Goodness. Yes, you do have a lot of staff. That is, maybe that's the secret. Maybe that's the secret to your success and why you've been able to keep your balance is you have such a great team. So you've hired a lot of staff and a lot of advisors. What do you think are their biggest struggles to achieving their balance?
Good question. Biggest struggles for them would probably be just workload. So as large of a staff that we have, I mean, our team is blessed where we're bringing in 500 leads a month and probably acquiring 5 to 15 new clients a week. So it could be almost like Groundhog's Day sometimes for them as they're continually it's a very steady busy. So we've always said we're operating already as a $1 billion firm. We're just not there yet. And so that was the biggest thing for us was making sure we hire in anticipation of the growth because we always found ourselves struggling. So we did this massive hiring spree in 2021 where we doubled our staff. And really that allowed us to continue on our scale and our growth. But I think the difficulty is it's just they're seeing the growth and it is a lot of work, even with how large as our staff is. And we do have such a good family feel. We call it the Falcon family. But at the same time, it is nice to have work-life balance. I think somebody yesterday, one of our members, his name is Ricky, he said, hey, I'm leaving early today. He was working on something for me. I'm leaving early to go to my mother's birthday. She's turning 60. And my instant response is, good for you, man. You work very hard. I'm happy you get to enjoy it. And I'm not sure how he took that, but that's just how I am. And, I always look at it. If you do everything that you need to do, if you handle your tasks, there's nothing you have, left on your plate and you're not leaving in the middle of, then good for you. You should be able to manage independently. And so that is the culture. And I think just as long as they know how to manage their busy days, which takes time, right? It took me 5 years. So I think that could be their initial struggles.
You worked at other firms. You mentioned TD, you mentioned the wirehouse, banks. You've been around other advisors. Compared, obviously it's not a commercial for Falcon Wealth Planning, but it is. This is your culture. Like, I love it. Can I have a job? Like, can I come work for you guys? You're amazing. Like this, it sounds like what you've built is really a culture of balance. This is what I'm striving for. This is what I'm trying to help advisors be, is balanced advisors. You get the t-shirt, we should be having one sent off in the mail to you just by being a guest on the show. But you know what I'm saying? Like you're blazing the trail ahead. So I often look at independent guys. Typically, a lot of the big reasons why they're leaving is culture, which means balance. It means flexibility. It means being able to lead your own way. So looking backwards, looking at these other places where you have worked, what do you think were some of the biggest issues for others in the industry when it came to balance?
Yeah, I would say it's, the leadership had in their mind of how they want to do it. Everybody should copy me. And if I'm if I'm not focusing on work-life balance, maybe because they don't have maybe they're not married or they don't have kids. That shouldn't matter. I think it's having the open-mindedness to realize that each individual has a different goal and need and want. And I think just allowing them the flexibility of doing that. We want hardworking, efficient individuals that are honest. And I think just putting a culture in to allow them, if they're going to do motocross every single weekend or go hiking, allowing that type of balance to do that, I think it's just important, and it shows you care. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to. I think what helped to build Falcon Wealth's culture is, I think, twofold. I've been part of very poor cultures. This firm was founded on and motivated me to start a new firm because of a firm I came with an extremely poor culture. But I was blessed at TD Ameritrade in the banking world, in the wirehouse, where I had, we'll call him player's coach. I was already extremely self-motivated. So, I mean, with all due respect, what do you have to tell me to motivate me more? I just made 100 phone calls today. Are you going to give me a pep talk on how I should make 175? And I think it's just being able to appreciate the individual that you have at the moment, not later if they leave, but at the moment, I think is difficult for leadership. And I was able to see leaders. One of the best managers I had is actually now one of my colleagues at Falcon Wealth. And he was just able to just say, hey, you're crushing it. You're doing well. What can I do to help you? And if I ever had to leave early, he would tell me, you should leave early. And I think that was always important to me when working with people and I see how hard they work, say, hey, listen, why don't you just finish up and leave early? And that just shows you appreciate their hard work. And a lot of the time, forget our industry, all industries, people are unhappy because they just feel, and this could be in relationships. This doesn't even have to be work. It's just because they feel underappreciated.
Got a book on my shelf. It's called The Carrot Principle. It's literally right behind me. It's been several different editions, but the research does support exactly what you're saying on this. And Gabriel, they found that when employers in any industry, right? And this goes beyond the financial planning industry, but in any industry that get what makes their employees tick, they understand their motivation and their goals, that they're able to, be a better leader. Now that's in general. What's interesting, what I found in that book, I found balance. One of the biggest issues that employees want, they want a balanced place to work at. They want the freedom that you are already exemplifying in the company culture so that they can have a less stressful environment and they can be with their family. They can do these things. That's what they want. So I find that honestly refreshing, Gabriel. I love this. I love that you're talking about this. I know that you've dealt with situations where it wasn't like that, right? But it may be that that's what's actually pushed you to take this leap, is to create this culture, to get into a balanced location. And now look what you've done for other people. Like literally 40 other families are thanking you because they get to work with you. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. So let's talk, if you could say, here are the 2-3 things that advisors, if you could do this now, obviously an advisor could be anywhere. They could be an employee. They could be the employer. They could be at a big wirehouse. They could be at a life insurance company. But if you could boil down some principles, 2 or 3 things you'd say, all right, if I could just do this maybe sooner, or some tips that would help make me balance when I was younger, what would you say? How would you help give back to those advisors out there who are trying to achieve the balance?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I'd say probably the first part is just setting expectation with your support system. So in my case, my spouse, just explaining to them the amount of commitment this may take. You don't want to get that text message or email to say, where are you at? Or because whether you are an insurance agent or a employee or a partner or a founder, I mean, our industry financially is one of the better industries because you have to work hard and you have a knowledge and a skill. And so, but we can't ignore the work hard piece. So setting that expectation with your support system and making sure you have support with them is important. You don't want to get those late night texts. You don't want to have to get, oh, you're checking your phone. Do you really have to check your phone? I mean, because this becomes part of your life. And so I think that's important. I think also early on, there are going to be a subset of individuals that you may have thought were your support system that are not, and they may discourage you. They may make fun of you. They may try to bring you down. They may try to throw obstacles in front of you, and you may be blinded by not seeing that. This could be friends, lifelong friends. This could be family members. This could be whatever the case is. And I think being aware of that, if you in your heart and you have the vision, you know what you have to do. You shouldn't let anybody discourage you in finding any flaws in what you're doing. You should have a full support system. And so it's okay to disconnect from those type of engagements. And I would say that just the last part is, please make sure you're doing this for passion and love. I don't see a lot of successful basketball players that are doing it just for the money. I mean, Michael Jordan's a billionaire, but my God, he was committed and loved the sport and just the competition of it. And so you have to be motivated by more than just money. I think he signed a 10-year, $10 million contract, which was just like embarrassing at the time. He was extremely underpaid throughout his prime. So just the money will come, but please have a bigger purpose than that. I think that could be difficult, and you could be swayed and you can be discouraged if you focus only on the money. Money will, you guys, you don't need me to tell you this. The money will come.
Yeah, no, they will. I just was reading a book yesterday as I was working out, listening to an audiobook called The Upside of Stress. I spent years studying stress. I spent years studying motivation, goal setting, goal achievement, balance. And one thing that just kind of slapped me up the side of the head, I'm like, duh, I do this all the time, is when you're in a stressful situation, instead of, focusing on the stress, they were saying that a lot of the reason why people have negative responses to stress, it's not because of the stress. It's how they view the stress. But if you will instead look to your purpose, look to your values, that you can get through a stressful situation and actually sometimes even perform better than if you didn't have that stressful situation. But if you forget your purpose, you forget what you're doing these things for, then it's easy to blame it on the stress, and that actually causes you to be depressed. So interesting, you brought this up. This is kind of a very timely, advice, Gabriel. Appreciate this. You talked about creating boundaries, and I was laughing because we've got videos. They're going to start poking some fun at financial advisors. And the first one is checking their messages, from clients. And anyway, it's super funny, but right on. Exactly what you mentioned there. We got to create those boundaries. But I think also one thing we haven't talked about as much that I want to prod you on, just one other follow-up, support systems. You kind of let us in on this a little bit, but I want to prod you on this. You mentioned, get the right support systems, and the ones that aren't supportive, maybe even expect it. But I want to go deeper. I'm going to ask you, tell me about your wife. You mentioned at the very beginning, like this was the key intro, that you have a very supportive wife. Follow up here. How has your wife been so supportive, and talk to me about that relationship and why that's a key indicator of your success?
Yeah, I would say, kind of going back, I'm an upbeat, I'm a high energy, I'm a passionate individual. And I think she saw this 1 year period of my life, of my career, where I was just unhappy. And it was really derived from the work I was doing at the time. So I think her seeing somebody who's so just happy, I want to, not blindly happy, just, but just a positive individual. And I think to see that change and because of a work environment or a culture, I think she felt I had to do it. And I think it's just the support you need, unconditional support, is just someone who truly wants what's best for you. It was difficult to making, well into the six figures, to making, negative 50,000 the first year. And but she knew, she knew the type of individual that I was capable of. And even beyond all of that, she just wanted me happy. And even if we sold our first house, there was a point in time, it was a crucial part. We sold our first house and started renting, really for the company, to accelerate our growth. And that, I don't know how many spouses would do that, whether they love their, spouse or not. But, it's just the unconditional support is huge. And yet again, it comes also from expectation setting on my end, doing proper forecasting to let her know kind of what to expect, yet again, expectations. And I think just her family, it was also involving her family in this decision. So they know what we were going through. And, so that we are an open family. Of course, my family was more of the cautious one. Like, are you sure you want to do this? You can have a good life without doing this. But I think that it just made me happy, especially knowing of the experiences that I had leading up to going independent. And then now I just had this vision of what I thought a firm should look like, and I couldn't find it. I think that was almost a blessing in disguise, because I wouldn't have been happy working anywhere else. And we're trying to build something that is what we want here at Falcon.
I will have to say, you are the first advisor who's been on this show who said, we sold our house to rent for the company. And you are exactly right, my friend. Like, what spouse out there is willing to sell their comfort but she must have seen the vision and she must have trusted you. That's a huge trust factor. Right? And marriage is it's a whole different ballgame. In Achieving Balance, it's not a marriage book. But my PhD is in family and human development. I focused on marriage and money. And I really wanted to understand all this in balance. So in chapter 13, I have a whole section about accountability and support systems. And I bring the argument that our spouses are our number one fans. I wanted to kind of drill into this a little bit more. The next book that I write will be about the supportive spouse and how it is the key indicator and the differentiating factor. I have seen it time and time again with balanced advisors. If you don't have the support system that's there, man, it's really difficult to make these decisions. It's really difficult to do this on your own, if not impossible. Because if she wasn't on board, there's no way you guys could have been successful as you are now, right? And I also heard you say, like, she was also there to kind of support and push you to become an entrepreneur and get out there and do this in the first place. So this is excellent. I really appreciate this, Gabriel. What a great story that you have. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being on the show and for letting other advisors know. If they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? What if they want to work with you? If I wasn't an advisor still, I'd be calling. But if I'm an advisor and I want to be on your team, what's the best way to get a hold of you, man? Yeah,
I would say in my email, Gabriel@falconwp.com. That's Falcon like the bird, WP.com, or just give a call directly to the office. That's 855-963-2526. It's 855-963-2526. It's actually 96 Falcon, like the bird. So love it. That best way.
Love it. Thank you for being on the show. I appreciate your candidness, your honesty, and as always, your help to move forward, help balanced advisors everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Appreciate everything you do.